Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show, I've been waiting for quite some time for the series to develop, and of course, just put aside some time to take on such a monumental and beautiful piece of writing. Now, you guys may remember 02321's work from the Agent series in the woods. And if you enjoy that one as much as I'm sure you're going to love this one as well. But of course, as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. Well, it really does help both the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. Entitled, I Work as a PI, Part 2. Let's get straight into that. My body forced another break. This time I found a small gully to sit at the bottom of, because my lungs burned and legs shook. That thing easily killed Nicholas. Running felt pointless, and yet still, I wasn't dead. And as I let the cold night air cool my face, I wondered over that fact. I was still alive. Surely I wasn't out running something like that. So why was I still alive? When I stopped, I placed Jenna in my arms and against my chest. That thing, that witch, I decided to call it, wanted her back. I would never trade her life for my own. When I rested and listened, I thought of a theory. The witch could kill me at any time, but it wanted me to give up, to hand over Jenna because it found my fear amusing. That bitch might not have any plans on letting me escape from those woods, and that thought nearly made me lose all hope. I turned off the flashlight to not give away my location, while staring off into the never-ending darkness, thinking over what I was going to do. In the end, I wondered if Jenna would ever forgive me for using her, as it was clear that the witch was only letting me live because I still had her. And getting to my feet, I kept her on my back again to continue off into the woods. If that witch came again, I would give her Jenna, only if she killed me. My death would mean something, because I had used everything I had to protect a little girl. Even if it didn't matter in the end. I wasn't being brave. I was terrified. Using a small child to justify moving forwards. And with no weapons and no hope of escaping, I was going to face that witch. With accepting my own death, my fear felt manageable. It's a strange feeling, knowing something terrible was going to happen, but you don't have any control over it. The witch's powers could be anything, and yet I walked ready to face it with shaking knees. Then by some miracle, the wood started to become lighter. I couldn't believe it. Not only was dawn approaching, but I spotted a hanging candy, and then another. A light feeling started in my chest as I followed the line of colour, until I reached an opening in the woods, and nearly cried when I saw it was the hiking trail. My clothing was dirty and torn. My body was ready to collapse. I made it. Well, almost made it. The trail gave me a second wind as I started walking along it, convinced that I was going to live. That was a mistake. Sensing something at my back, fear struck my entire body, killing any flames of hope in my chest. And slowly turning around, I looked until I heard a noise that directed my attention to the tree line. And floating above the hiking trail, staring down at us, was the witch in the smaller form, covered in rags. "Oh, you bitch," I hissed so angrily, I thought I tasted blood. I wasn't nearly out of the woods. It let me get this far. It gave me hope just to take it away. I wanted to kill the bastard for not only what it put me through, but what it did to Nicholas. As I thought of Jenna on my back and the people left behind in the cabin, my rage grew, and I stared down the monster that caused all of it. I suppose it was not the expression it wanted. The witch let out a cackling laugh when I first looked up, but the sound then faded as I glared upwards, fuming. I was unarmed, but the witch almost looked unsettled by my expression. Clearly enraged over my reaction, it outstretched its pale, bony arms to the side of its body. More laughter burst out as a new crackling sound surrounded us. Flashes of light then burst from the sky, and the air started to smell different. My chest tightened, and I knew a storm was coming, and this creature could control it. A loud crack erupted from the sky as a flash of light came crashing down a few meters away, blowing a tree to pieces. My body tensed from the noise and light, but I refused to react. I wasn't going to give this witch the satisfaction of getting any more fear from me. More lightning strikes crashed around us as a gust of wind picked up, spreading the smell of fires from the trees. And I stood my ground, with a small child upon my back, yet unable to do anything but glare. As the lightning died down, the witch floated closer, face twisted in a snarl. I was done showing off. The next strike would take my life because I'd stopped being amusing. I wondered if I should put Jenna down so she could avoid getting killed. The eyes inside that fleshless face made me realize a quick death was better than handing her over to the witch. Bracing myself, I stood, fear causing my heart to beat so hard I felt fainting, yet I still kept the glare on my face. What happened next was far too fast for my eyes to follow. A burst of sound came from the left before the witch tossed a hand in my direction, and a bolt of lightning burst forth a second after. What came before the movement sounded like something I'd never heard before. Almost like metal swinging down, but with a more musical tone. When the flash of lightning crashed to the ground, my eyes closed and my body tensed up as I expected to feel some pain, at the very least. Instead, a booming crack exploded as the lightning crashed down to the earth, but inside that with the same almost musical sound I'd heard before. I was holding my breath waiting for the end that didn't come. The crackling surrounded me and the lack of pain made me open my eyes to be able to see what the hell just happened and why I was still standing. On either side of the trail were sparks of electricity, travelling through the trees and then dying down. The witch was still floating in the air. And suddenly, before my eyes, the creature split in half and fell hard to the ground. A deep groove in the trail continued on for at least a mile, in front of the one who had just saved my life. And my mouth fell open, and I stared in shock at the man I was certain had died. "Nick?" I asked in a strained voice. He stood, facing where the witch once was. In his hand, something glittering drew my eyes to it. He was holding a thin blade, with a hilt that looked similar to a fencing sword, but a bit thicker. The gold delicate hilt looked far too beautiful for one to be used in battle. With one more clear sound, he placed the sword back into the hilt at his side. And looking over his shoulder, he faced me with the same emotionless expression he always wore. "I need to reintroduce myself. I am Nicholas Flint. I am a government agent and work as an executioner of supernatural creatures," he said in a cool voice that made my chest flutter. And judging from how the lightning struck, Nicholas either cut it in half or deflected it with his musical sword. I never fully understood the word awestruck until I looked at the man who literally cut lightning. Even after all the horrors I had witnessed, I felt myself thinking Nicholas was the coolest person on the planet. He ruined that in half a second when he pulled out a pink flip phone weighed down by countless charms. The appearance of the flip phone made me see him as just Nick again. I never gotten the same vibe of overwhelming confidence from him since. I sank to my knees, unable to deal with everything that had just happened, as Nick reported the events over the phone. 1 alive, 3 unable to be saved, 1 witch killed. I'll be bringing the survivor and my temporary partner to the start of the trail. After he was finished speaking, he snapped his phone shut and walked over to take Jenna from my back. He gave me a few minutes to recover enough to be able to walk again. His suit looked as spotless as it was when we first entered the woods, and there was another question to ask about, but not for the most pressing one at the moment. Exhaustion set in, and I silently followed him to where the emergency crew set up at the start of the trail. And Jenna was placed inside an ambulance to be taken away. Nick guided me to a SUV with an open trunk, letting me sit to wait for him. For some reason, he placed a blanket over my shoulders, resembling one that people who suffered some sort of shock would get. It took him a while to get back to me. I checked my phone, expecting to see a night pass, but was shocked to see we were only in those woods for an hour. And after all the activity died down, Nick came back over, ready to answer my questions. But my mind was racing, and I didn't know where to start. "So, you're a supernatural creature that kills other bad ones? A secret agent that couldn't ask the police to help you track down that witch?" I asked, trying to get the facts straight in my head. I received a blank expression, and Nick took one step away. It appears you figured everything out yourself. I don't think I'm needed. If it wasn't for his monotone voice, I would think he made a joke. I caught his suit jacket to pull him back, not even close to being done. I have so many questions, so don't you dare leave. Why didn't you kill that witch when we first saw it? How were you still alive without so much of a scratching? Why did you even need me in those woods? I'm a human and couldn't do jack shit. My voice trembled as I forced myself to be angry, instead of breaking down and crying. Another long pause came between us, as Nick let my head cool before he spoke. In that time, I already thought of the answer to my first question. Nick couldn't kill the witch without risking killing us. I was behind the creature. It was just bad luck, and he said as much. The witch was in a poor placement, and I took a hit to let you get to a safe spot before I attacked. I doubted the creature knew and just got lucky. For what I am, it's complicated. I am able to absorb other supernatural creatures in order to heal or absorb objects made by supernatural means. As you ran, my plan was to use the cabin and heal and then go after you. I hoped to kill the witch before it left, but it slipped past me, and well, I made a grave mistake, letting you go off alone. He said with a hint of a sigh. You don't say. I replied, but my sarcasm was lost on him. The reason why I asked for your assistance is I required a human to follow the trail. The witch made their own territory in a way that supernatural creatures could not find the entrance. When it comes to magic, it is not as powerful as you would think. I could not find the trail, but nothing kept me from following a human who could. He explained and raised an eyebrow. He seriously only needed me because I was human. Would that explain why he didn't follow after when I ran off into the woods? I ran into the witch's territory and he didn't see where I went and was unable to follow. But that didn't explain how he appeared from thin air to be the hero at the last second. As I thought about that fact, I noticed something. After he replaced the sword into the hilt, I could no longer see it. How did you burst out with a disappearing sword then? I asked. My sword is still here. It's been here the entire time. Try looking at where you saw it last while you unfocus your eyes. It's because of this sword I was able to save you both. I did as I was told. It was difficult, but after a minute, I let my sight grow hazy enough for the sword I'd seen before to appear, like magic, at Nick's waist. The golden hilt glimmered, but when I looked at it directly, it disappeared again. It's pretty nice looking. Hard to believe you use it to kill anything, I commented, and a hint of a smile came over his face. Its name is Orchestra. It's a bit finicky. After I couldn't find you, I needed to force it to cut through into the witch's territory. I could have done so at any time, and I sort of didn't need to bring you along, but I'd refused. You don't want to know what I promised it in order to do something it deemed unworthy of saving two humans. But I think you complimenting it pleased it enough to be happy you lived. I didn't know how I felt over a sentient sword being the reason why my life was in danger in the first place, but I was glad it decided I was good enough to save, and so I didn't comment on it. Also, why did you give me a blanket? It's hot over here. It's a shock blanket. You are in shock. I almost argued that it was such a small matter I didn't press it from how exhausted the night had made me. The talk of witches, swords and government agents turned my brain to mush, making it impossible to get my thoughts straight. My phone pinged in my pocket, and checking it was a reflex, so I pulled it out to see the notification of an email. A lot of my work was on my phone, so to clear my head I checked to see what the email said. Turns out I needed that shock blanket. I felt myself clutching it as I read what appeared on my phone screen. Another deposit was placed in my account. This time the amount was 10 grand. My hand shook rereading the amount. Did you just pay me? I asked, unable to get all the words out. I apologize, the amount is so low. Agents that are in higher demand or that face powerful creatures get paid more for a job. The witch was only on a very low end of payout because it was such a minor threat. Nick explained. Now my mouth felt dry thinking about what he had just said. 12 grand for one day of work. Sure, I nearly died, but that amount of money held me out of a lot towards my goal. Hell, goals I thought to be a dream started to flood back into my head as I looked over my account. My sister raised me when my parents kicked me out and disowned me when I was a teen. I'd always felt like I needed to pay her back. I took on any job I could, trying to save up to buy her a house so she could stop renting crappy places. And not just a house. I wanted her kids to go to college, and I wanted to pay for the surgery that was looming over my future. I need to head out and make out a report, so if... Nick stopped speaking when I suddenly stood up, taking him by the shoulder as the blanket fell to the ground. You said you're a contract worker, right? And if I wasn't your temporary partner, does that mean you don't currently have one? I asked in an excited tone. Well, yes, he answered slowly, not understanding what I was getting at. Or can I do more jobs with you? Jobs like this. The questions were practically demands. I didn't care about supernatural creatures or what them be real meant for my new view of the world. I no longer cared if I nearly died or the fear I felt from being chased in the woods. I only cared about the big payday this kind of job could bring. I suppose. I do not know as much about the human side of things as I should, so I may require another human partner. But this work is dangerous. Every time you go out into the field, you risk your life. Each job a gamble. Are you certain you want that as a future? Nick said in a voice sounding more surprised than somber for the topic. I'm positive. Give me your number. And holding out my cell phone, I didn't let go of his shoulder until he took out a card with his number printed on it. Nick didn't know how to put his contact information into my phone, so I quickly did it and put my number into his flip phone as well. I really need to be going. I'll contact you if any job suitable for a human come up. Because I've involved a human, there are extra forms to fill out. Nick said as he started to walk away. No rest for the wicked, I see, I commented. He took out his notebook and needed to tell him it was just an expression. This guy really was clueless about a lot of things. And we parted ways, and he took his SUV to wherever he needed to be. I sat in my car for a long while, thinking over everything that had just happened and what my future might look like from now on. I was already buying things in my head with money I didn't own just yet. On my way home, I ordered a nice steak dinner for pickup. My clothing was dirty and ruined, so I couldn't sit in a restaurant and eat. But I thought I had earned a nice meal, for once. Then I waited for a message from Nick, not at all caring that this job brought nightmares along with it. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. I told you it was an intense one. Absolutely chest-pounding and totally refreshing. What a magnificent and mysterious start to this series. And from our good friend 02321 from over on Reddit, No Sleep. Many chapters to this series, guys and girls, so I hope you bear with us as we try to get at least 1 or 2 a week up. Of course, as ever though, please do take a second to head over to the link, which I'll leave in the description box below. That'll take you over to 02321's Reddit profile, where you can definitely lose yourself for a good few hours with the awesome content of stories and poems. As ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help both the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. A big welcome to all the brand new Cryptid Crew members. I hope you're enjoying the backlog of content. And we'll be trying to update that monthly as we get back into the swing of things and regular schedule. All you beautiful subscribers, keep your notification bells on as well. Plenty of live streams and re-listen parties coming up over the next few weeks and months as we try to engage with you more and bring back the old school feel of the channel. One big happy family, full of cryptid craziness and bad dad jokes. I hope you're all well and happy and had a fantastic week at work, school, or whatever it is that you do, and your family and friends are well. But above all, guys, remember, Be safe, not sorry.